Tonight, history in the making. Catholic Church chooses a new pope. House arrest. The Crown is appealing a sexual assault sentence. And wanted. Police looking for a woman from Fort St. John. Good evening and thank you for joining us, and we begin tonight with a moment forever etched in world history. Bells ringing out in St. Peter's Square, celebrating the Catholic Church's 267th Pope. And for the first time, an American has been chosen as the new Bishop of Rome. Genevieve Beauchemin is in Vatican City with more on the historic moment.
What do you think? Yes.
As to an already packed St. Peter's Square. Tens of thousands there watched a family of seagulls perch near the chimney as white smoke rose from the Sistine Chapel. All gathered here from around the world to watch this moment in history.
Habemus Papam.
We have a pope, said the senior cardinal deacon. Cardinal Robert Francis Prévost, who has taken the name Leo XIV, emerged on the central loggia of St. Peter's Basilica.
Sancti Apostoli Petrus et Paulus.
Peace be with all of you, were his first words as he called for the world to build bridges.
Petri et Pauli et omnium sanctorum.
The faithful and the world now analyzing his speech and past to determine in what direction he will lead the church. Leo XIV is a 69-year-old American born in Chicago, Illinois, to Italian and French parents. He spent years as a missionary in Peru and becomes the first pope from the Augustinian order, the first American.
Cardinals saw in Leo XIV, this man, newly elected pope, someone who's going to continue the legacy of Pope Francis and at the same time give it a new face.
Et Spiritus Sancti descendat super vos et
His name was not among those seen as frontrunners entering the conclave.
Quella mattina del giorno di Pasqua.
An American pope from a military and economic superpower was thought unthinkable to many analysts.
In days to come, there are celebrations, but also a mass here on St. Peter's Square in honor of the new pope, but also moments of reflection ahead. Genevieve Beauchemin, CTV News, Vatican City.
Back here at home tonight, the Crown is appealing the sentence of a Fort St. John veterinarian. After being found guilty of sexual assault, the judge in the case sentenced Justin Sewell to house arrest. Sewell was sentenced to 2 years less a day for 3 charges in connection to a 2007 sexual assault in Charlie Lake. Judge David Simpkin ruled he served those sentences concurrently. Simpkin is also allowing Sewell to continue running his business on a daily basis. The prosecution was looking for a 4.5-year sentence that would have sent Sewell to federal prison. However, he avoided jail time. At the beginning of April, the BC Prosecution Service told CJDC-TV News it was carefully reviewing the court's decision. Well, the prosecution now says they've filed an appeal of the sentence. A hearing has been scheduled for July the 14th. The Fort St. John RCMP is asking for the public's help in finding a woman wanted for theft. Mounties are looking for Berna Charlene Langevin. The 56-year-old is currently wanted for theft under $5,000. Langevin is described as standing 5 feet 7 inches tall. She weighs 137 pounds, has white hair and green eyes. Anyone with any information on Langevin's whereabouts is being asked to contact the Fort St. John RCMP. With the wildfire season upon us, farmers and ranchers in BC are being urged to register their livestock. The province says the process will ensure crews can respond quickly in the event of an emergency or a disease outbreak. Now, registering for a premise ID is mandatory here in BC, but it's free and confidential. More than 40 active wildfires burning across the province right now, most of which are located here in the northeast. Just over 80% of them are thought to be human-caused. Wildfires in Alberta are continuing to shift, putting more people and homes in danger. The evacuation order for Sturgeon County has been expanded, now extending to the North Saskatchewan River. The fire is also threatening the town of Redwater, which is located about 50 kilometers north of Edmonton.
On Townships 574, we did 3 separate retardant drops with airplanes across that front of the fire, and it did nothing to stop that.
More than 40 homes near Redwater have been evacuated, and the whole town is under an evacuation alert. The fire chief says since the fire started on Saturday, windy and dry conditions have pushed the flames beyond firefighting efforts in certain areas. And they are warning residents that they need to be ready to leave within an hour's notice. Alberta Health Services is warning about a possible measles exposure in Edmonton. The exposure happened between Sunday, April the 27th and Monday, April the 28th at the Holiday Inn Express and Suites in South Edmonton. There are 10 new confirmed cases, bringing the provincial total to over 300. A group of doctors are warning the virus could grow exponentially in the coming weeks in Alberta. And after pressure from the medical profession, Danielle Smith's government is now ramping up efforts to get Albertans immunized against measles. Daily immunization clinics have been opened near hotspots. Elections Canada is saying more than 800 special ballots from the federal election were mistakenly kept in a Lower Mainland riding. The agency says 822 special ballots cast in 74 electoral districts were left with the returning officer in the riding of Coquitlam-Port Coquitlam. Over 500 of those votes were for the nearby electoral district of Port Moody Coquitlam. Other ballots were from districts as far east as Halifax. Elections Canada says all parties have been informed and the outcomes of any ridings were not affected by the mislaid ballots. The Bank of Canada has released its report on the stability of Canada's financial system. The report saying the country's financial system is resilient. It says Canadian households, businesses, and banks have now successfully weathered the pandemic and a period of elevated inflation and a sharp increase in interest rates. But, the bank warns, the large shift in the direction of U.S. trade policy threatens the Canadian economy and poses risks to our financial stability. The cross-examination of the Crown's main witness is intensifying at the sexual assault trial of 5 former Canadian World Junior hockey players. CTV's Nick Paparella has more on how the mood is changing at the London, Ontario courthouse.
As the 5 defendants arrived at the London courthouse for the 4th day of testimony from the female complainant, the cross-examination resumed from Megan Savard, the lawyer for one of the accused, Carter Hart. Savard kept hammering away at the recollection of the woman, who can only be identified as E.M. Savard compared her testimony this week with the police statement made days after the alleged incident at the Delta Armories Hotel in downtown London in 2018. Savard suggested she never told officers she was physically coerced into staying in room 209 by the men after performing sexual acts. Savard asked, "No one touched you. No one said, 'Don't let her leave.' And she responded, 'I disagree with you. I know what happened.' She added, 'They convinced me to stay. I was drunk. That's how they were handling that.' When asked by Savard if she was advancing a criminal narrative, she said, 'I'm saying my truth, my story. I'm not trying to make it any worse.' When the woman's lawsuit, which was settled with Hockey Canada in 2022, was brought to the jurors' attention, they were told not to use allegations in the statement of claim as evidence of any guilt or wrongdoing. The woman said she never thought it would be made public, saying, 'That was my understanding. It would be private, and I would be done with this and could move on.' The players would eventually be charged in 2024. This case stems from an alleged incident involving a group of men and a lone female at the Delta Armories. It's the same time that the hockey players were in London for a gala to celebrate their gold medal win at the World Juniors. The 5 defendants, Alex Formanton, Michael McLeod, Carter Hart, Dylan Dubé, and Cal Foote, have all pled not guilty to sexual assault, with McLeod also pleading not guilty to the additional charge of being a party to the offense. The female complainant's testimony is key to the Crown's case, and that's why the 5 defense lawyers are taking their time during the cross-examination. Later in the day, Daniel Brown, the lawyer for Alex Formanton, started his cross-examination, again comparing the police statements in 2018 to the Hockey Canada statement of claim, and she agreed there were some inconsistencies, saying there were things in my 2022 statement that were either out of order or incorrect. Throughout her testimony, she has maintained one narrative, that she was drunk after consuming alcohol at Jack's bar with some of the players on the night in question before going to the hotel. Nick Paparella, CTV News.
U.S. President Donald Trump has agreed to cut tariffs on autos, steel, and aluminum in a new trade deal with the United Kingdom.
Today's agreement with the UK is the first in a series of agreements on trade that my administration has been negotiating over the past 4 weeks. With this deal, the UK joins the United States in affirming that reciprocity and fairness is an essential and vital principle of international trade.
Really important deal. This is going to boost trade between and across our countries. It's going to not only protect jobs but create jobs, opening market access.
Trump announced the deal in the Oval Office today. He was joined on the phone by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Under the deal, the U.S. would slash tariffs on British cars from 27% to 10%, and the levies on steel and aluminum will be reduced to 0%. Trump downplayed the possibility of other nations seeing similar deals. The U.S. president saying other countries will face higher tariff rates because the U.S. runs trade deficits with them. Hostilities ramping up further between India and Pakistan today. India says it intercepted Pakistani attempts to hit military targets. Meanwhile, in the capital of Pakistan, officials claim to have shot down drones and killed dozens of Indian soldiers along the border dividing the disputed Kashmir region. World leaders are urging both countries to show restraint. Both Ukraine and Russia are reporting attacks on their forces on the first day of a 72-hour ceasefire. Ukrainian soldiers in eastern Ukraine say a small Russian battle group tried to advance this morning. It was stopped by drones. Ukrainian officials add that a Russian bomb struck northeast Ukraine in the opening hours of the truce, killing at least one civilian. All this coming as Ukraine's parliament approves a landmark minerals deal with the United States. The ratification is a key step in setting the deal in motion. It would allow Washington to access Ukraine's largely untapped mineral reserves and create a joint investment fund with the United States to pay for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Well, today marks the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War in Europe. It was an historic moment in which Canada played a significant role. More than 1.1 million Canadians served, while 45,000 of them did not return home. Today, those sacrifices were recognized across the country. CTV's Abigail Beeman reports.
I wanted to know the importance of this day for you.
Every day is important for me. I'm living. I'm 102 right now.
Warrant Officer Roland Lalonde remembers his role in the liberation of the Netherlands from Nazi occupation 80 years ago.
It always brings a memory of the service. It always comes back at some time or another. But I had a good life.
While more than 1 million Canadians served in the Second World War, only a few thousand are still alive to tell their stories.
I am not a hero. I'm a simple sailor, and I was 18 years old when I went to sea.
A time 80 years ago when Canada was a consequential nation, where we contributed mightily to the Allied victory, standing with Britain and the United States against the Nazi threat.
We honor brave Canadians and Allied troops who answered the call to fight.
This Ottawa ceremony paid tribute to Victory Day in Europe and the Dutch liberation.
You are free because of them.
Where Canada's pivotal role has not been forgotten.
My father was 4 years old when he was liberated, and he told me he was waving a little flag and he was so excited, and they got chocolates. They still think Canadian chocolate is the best in the world because of that first imprint.
While in London, the royal family marked VE Day.
Hostilities will end officially at 1 minute after midnight tonight, Tuesday, the 8th of May.
Along with Winston Churchill's great-great-grandson.
Let us pray for peace in Europe and across the world, in our time and for generations to come.
Marking VE Day in this moment of heightened geopolitical tensions lends an extra feel of significance, with many reflecting on the importance of peace, both then and now. Abigail Beeman, CTV News, Ottawa.
All right, that does it for news. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with weather.